Good morning. One of the many things brought me to Asia. Probably first and foremost is an appreciation of the culture. Having spent most of my formative years in Hawaii, which is sort of a blend of East meets West, as evidenced by the well-known East-West Center at my alma mater, the University of Hawaii. So we grew up kind of a mixed plate, different nationalities of food, different flavors of peoples, different appreciation of mores, customs, culture. And so it's natural that I would end up in Asia, particularly Taiwan. And one of the things amongst many that's fascinated me is Cha Tao, the art of tea. Now, I spent some time in Japan and was exposed to the Japanese tea ceremony with all its elaborate structures, steps, as well as Taiwan's Cha Tao, tea culture, the art of tea. Taiwan is famous for oolong tea, and some of the finest teas in the world come from here, as well as the appreciation of tea drinking. When I first came here many years, there was lots of tea houses, and they were fun. They ranged from all the way to full service or part service, kind of a do-it-yourself. Bring your own tea. They supplied all the utensils, the hot water, the space. You brought your tea, and in exchange for using their space, you bought their snacks, their little desserts, their little things that went seamlessly with the consumption of tea. You would sit around for hours, and a lot of the tea houses had really beautiful views. But this was a long, drawn-out, time-consuming art. It's to the point that they even call it old man tea, as the old men would really have only ones with enough free time to appreciate the leisurely pace of sharing and preparation of tea. And it's something that I want to learn more and more about. I've learned some of the rudimentaries, techniques. I have some of the teapots and little cups and some of the things that are necessary that accompany the tea service. There's so much more to learn. They use inaki, or some types of cedars, huge pieces of trunks that have been elaborately carved, and matching benches to sit around. And the art of making the little teapots is quite an art in and of itself. Collecting, having old teapots that have made cups and cups of tea. Anyway, there's much to appreciate. But it's all about the sharing. Now, my exposure to the Japanese tea ceremony, which is kind of prompting today's sharing, was through friendship and participation in the tea ceremony was interesting, intriguing. In one of the commonalities between the Chinese and the Japanese adaptation of Cha Tao is that one person would be the focal point, the master, one person, the host, one person was controlling the process, preparation of tea. And in Japan, several different friends led tea ceremonies. But today I'm talking about the feather and the sword. Two distinct people and two distinct methods of conducting the tea ceremony. Now, Japanese, for the most part, at the risk of making generalizations, are more formal than many friends I've found in Taiwan. So who's ever the host, the commonality is that they take on in the Japanese environment, they take on a role and their shoulders straighten. They tend to get, for the most part, more serious because their ceremony is precise. Now, I had two friends, a couple, who both practiced and liked to spend time in the tea ceremony. One, the samurai husband, who I call in this exercise, he's the sword. And when he conducted the ceremony, he breached no he tolerated no errors within the protocols, precise, specific protocols. It involves turning the cup, and you can watch it. And it's a strict adherence to a protocol. And he assumed the mantle of like I said, a samurai. I felt so pressured when he was conducting the ceremony. Pressured to the point that after the first few times I participated with one or two or three other people in addition to this samurai. The pressure being so great that I found no enjoyment. The sword, I felt like one little mistake and it's gonna cut me with the sword, slash me. He broached no. He wouldn't accept less than perfect adherence in precision of the cup. And I've discovered through the years that I'm kind of dyslexic. I know one thing for sure. I've never been able to follow directions under the pressure of being observed by this giver of directions. There's a disconnect, I think, always between my mind and my body. That's why dancing has never been my forte. And even studies of martial arts, I did study Taekwondo. When it came to kata, form, following strict adherence to the sensei, to the teacher's directions. 1, 2, 3, 4. Disconnect. Whereas more free flowing activities such as sparring, in comparison to the kata, I'm talking about martial arts now, but what I'm talking about is a strict adherence. Even my Rinzai Zen Roshi, when he was instructing me, be it sitting or be it participation in what he called Zen walking, under his observation, listening to his instructions, I just would be overwhelmed. Just couldn't do it. Leave me to my own resources. And I've always done best with no observer, be it the giver of instructions or any audience. I don't know if this is my innate rejection of the confines of structure, because it also includes rote memory speeches, giving a speech, giving a presentation, overly prepared presentation, overly prepared. PowerPoint, hate it. I'm free flow. Even for these sharings, I'm gifted with a title which springs from the title, the bulk of what I wanted to present is contained within the title. And other than that, it's more spontaneous. I don't have a text. I'm not reading this. I haven't practiced this because the falsity of rehearsed, contrived presentation, not acceptable. I do best. And of course, one of the prices to pay is tangents. But somehow, most of the time, I'm able to come back to whence I started. So I'm coming back. The strict adherence from the samurai, where after 2 or 3 times, too much pressure, it was not fun. I thought the tea ceremony was supposed to be fun. My friend that was directing the ceremony didn't seem to be having much fun, but he was quick. And of course, we want to please. Always try. The novice always tries their best to please the master. And this relationship, especially the Japanese tea ceremony, was definitely master-disciple, master-participant. But my friend had only been doing the tea, actively doing the tea ceremony for the previous year. Now his wife, on the other hand, who I call the feather, had been participating, but conducting the tea ceremony for over 20 years. And she had the same confines and nothing changed except her manner. And I knew that the feather, the light touch, was much more effective with me than the sword. Any sort of confining brought resistance. Any threat of punishment put me immediately on guard in an equal warlike state. Turn your knife on me, and spontaneously I will respond in kind. It's not rational. It's a gut protection instinct. Excuse me. I get stuck on the idea of violence is abhorrent to me. But I do know that I will respond in kind and regret it later. Boy, that disturbed me. Just talking about it disturbed me on a deep level. I had to cough it out. Sorry. I won't edit that out because I think that it would be interesting that this is my natural response to even conceiving violence, much less on the part of myself. So I rejected this strict limiting, as I see it, limiting force, influence, directions. Brings up my rebellious nature. And if I've learned anything, when I'm in the arena, that's bringing out the rebel in me. The best recourse, the best course of action is to quietly remove myself from this circumstance and looking towards avoiding situations that I sensed were heading this direction. Quietly vacating, disappearing, with only the most perceptive even noticing, where did he go? Oh, yeah, he's good. And I have this down to a fine art. I've practiced this because confrontational situations are best avoided. I really get nothing out of confrontation. I'm never vested in being correct. I have never been vested in power, sustaining, maintaining, achieving. Power is absolutely less than zero import for me. Always has been, always will be. So, mana. Mana is the feather. She's the feminine, the yin to the other, to her partner's yang. And she's the one that was experienced. But her touch was so light as a feather, drastic contrast to her husband's heavy-handed, unforgiving, rigid, samurai energy. I could seamlessly, smoothly, naturally complete the ritual perfectly. And the key here is without thinking. My physical connection, my connection to my body is best accomplished on this level. Conscious, subconscious, conscious level just doesn't work for me to communicate, to put thoughts into action, to move my body, to feel connected to my body. But on a subconscious level, and best an unconscious level, the spontaneity, it's a seamless communication. So I would conduct myself, I would seamlessly, perfectly, because number one, she created a zone of comfort, relaxation, grace. She moved so beautifully, so smoothly, compared to her partner's specific. And it was a chance for me to witness impact, and how I'm sure that most people probably are most responsive to the disciplined, highly regulated, directed method of instruction, and that I'm probably in a minority who like subliminal, who appreciate subtlety, who reject and rebel against strict disciplinarian techniques. So here's the feather, mana. And I enjoyed participating in the tea ceremony when she was going to lead. And I noticed that the samurai husband, when she takes the lead, he seemed to be able to enjoy himself, contrary to when he's leading. But you know, the patriarchal construct of the Japanese, he felt like, I have to be the leader. I'll only surrender to my counterpart, to my wife, from time to time. But he did come to know that if he was going to lead Cha Tao, the tea ceremony, I would sit back quietly. I never expressed, I never shared, other than withdraw from participation. I'm not one to really criticize the other. I'm able to find so much fault within myself, so much self-directed criticism, so many things of within, worthy of critical examination, that I just don't have much time or inclination to direct this to others. But somehow my message got through that when I begged out of his Cha Tao, but was so happy and willing to participate with his wife in her feather technique, that perhaps, and I say this because he would never express this, because it would seem to be a weakness on his part, which he couldn't tolerate. His rigidity was masking his fear of failing, fear of appearing weak in his own eyes. But I always had the hopes that he could learn. As a one-year practitioner, he could take a page out of the book of a 20-year practitioner who, at least with me, got the desired results. I participated seamlessly with perfection, which is a big part of Japanese Cha Tao. The ceremony is seemingly more important than the consumption of tea and the enjoyment of the company. But Mana, the wife, achieved both. Seamless practice of the ceremony developed over many, many years with a sense of rightness, a well-developed, everything, every step had its reasons and had its history and had its background. And conducting seamlessly, going through the ceremony, was homage, was paying respects to all those that participated in the formation of this amazing art. Yet, at the same time, we were able to enjoy the social aspect, the company, the taste of the tea. All these things are much more important to me personally than someone watching, waiting, expecting mistakes, quick to point it out, quick to punish. So this metaphor, this construction, this sword and the feather, from my experience with my Japanese friends and the Cha Tao, the Japanese tea ceremony, has served me well. I'm much closer to a feather than a sword. It's much more effective. It's much more who I am. never much interested in being the sword. And perhaps it was the recognition that parts of my personality could lend itself to the sword, especially when I feel I was being infringed upon in any way. My reaction to the power struggle, although not ever desiring power, and quite frankly, not really understanding what the appeal was of power to others, the idea to have power over others, just rang so hollow. But I did know that my response, my protection, backed me into a corner with no apparent escape, and I could become a formidable foe. But what was always with me, these times that I did stand up to myself, that I did not tolerate being tread upon, the consequences for me were so extreme. I would suffer for weeks and months after any event, especially anger, especially lashing out. So that fight or flight impulse, I perfected flight, not out of cowardice, not out of being able to handle myself quite well and meet power with power. It was the consequences. So what stuck with me is that, number one, self-examination, what works for me and what doesn't work for me. And a constant reminder that gentleness, kindness, non-aggressive conduct suits me best. It has allowed me to come to Taiwan and enjoy the tea ceremony, because here life is much more like the feather. There's a tolerance, an acceptance, not the rigidity, not the closed-mindedness. And that's the primary reason that I'm in Taiwan instead of Japan.